Brexit has not paid off. We are a few years after that, and it's clear that the promises made haven't materialized, especially in key areas like the NHS, science, and the economy. And today I want to explore why, despite all the hype, Brexit hasn't delivered the benefits that were promised to the UK. We'll look at the facts, the broken promises, and how sectors like the NHS and scientific research are paying the price. Let's start with the NHS. Remember the infamous £300 million a week that was supposed to go to the NHS once they left the EU? That was one of the most significant promises of the Leave campaign. The idea was simple: stop sending money to the EU and instead invest it in their healthcare system. But what actually happened? The reality couldn't be further from that promise. In fact, the NHS has been under more pressure than ever since Brexit. Far from receiving a financial windfall, the NHS has faced staffing shortages, supply chain disruptions, and even rising costs for certain medicines and treatments due to the trade barriers with the EU. The UK has long relied on healthcare workers from the EU to fill vital roles in hospitals and clinics. But since Brexit, the number of EU nationals working in the NHS has dropped significantly. Nurses, doctors, care workers, all impacted. The new immigration system made it harder for EU nationals to work in the UK, and as a result, staffing shortages have worsened. The pandemic, of course, put enormous strain on the system, but Brexit added to the stress in ways that were entirely avoidable. Brexit has also taken a toll on British science and research, an area where the UK had traditionally excelled. Before leaving the EU, UK researchers were major beneficiaries of Horizon 2020, the EU's flagship research and innovation program. Horizon 2020 pumped billions into UK universities and science institutions and private research, allowing the UK to be at the cutting edge of global scientific discovery. However, after Brexit, the UK was cut off from full participation in the next round in Horizon Europe. Initially, there were talks of the UK buying back into the program as an associate member, but delays in negotiations and political squabbles left British scientists in limbo for years, unable to lead key research programs, and this has been a huge blow to their scientific community. Access to EU research funding wasn't just about money, it was also about collaboration. Many of the best scientific breakthroughs come from international teams working together. Brexit has made it harder for British researchers to work with their European counterparts, and the result is a UK science sector that's more isolated, more underfunded, and less able to compete globally when we saw this. But of course we can't ignore the broader economic impacts of Brexit. The vote was sold on the idea that leaving the EU would allow them to take back control of their economy. But in reality, we've seen the opposite. Brexit has led to economic uncertainty, reduced investment, and increased trade barriers. UK exports to the EU have been hit hard by the new customs checks, tariffs, and the red tape, only new to the UK, old for all other third countries. Small and medium-sized businesses in particular have struggled to adapt to the new rules. And for many, exporting to the EU has become too expensive and too complicated, leading some businesses to give up on trading with Europe altogether. Foreign direct investment has also taken a hit. Companies used to see the UK as a gateway to the rest of Europe, a place to set up shop and access the EU single market. Now, without that access, many businesses are choosing to invest in other European countries instead, leading to job losses and economic stagnation there at home. We were also told that Brexit would help British workers with promises of higher wages, more job opportunities, and a reduction in competition from EU migrants. But has that really happened? Well, In fact, many British workers are now worse off. Industries that relied heavily on EU labour, such as agriculture, hospitality and construction, have faced crippling labour shortages since Brexit. With fewer workers available, businesses are struggling to operate at full capacity, and in many cases, this has led to higher costs, lower productivity, and ultimately job losses. At the same time, inflation has surged, driven in part by supply chain disruptions and the increased cost of importing goods from the EU. As a result, many workers are finding their wages, in real terms, have stagnated or even fallen. The promise that Brexit would lead to an economic revival for the working class simply hasn't materialized. Another key promise of Brexit was that it would restore British sovereignty, allowing the UK to strike its own trade deals with countries around the world. Everybody was told that leaving the EU would open up a world of new opportunities and make the UK a global trading powerhouse. Well, in reality, these trade deals that they've signed since Brexit have been far from transformative. Many of the agreements simply replicates the deal they already had as EU members, temporarily at least, and the economic impact of these new deals has been relatively small. What's more, the UK's trade relationship with the EU remains far from ideal. Negotiations over the Northern Ireland Protocol, the fishing rights and border checks have been ongoing, causing further tension with their closest trading partners. And despite all the talk of sovereignty, the UK has ended up in a position where they have less influence over European trade rules, but still have to abide by many of them to access the single market. Brexit has also left a lasting scar on the political landscape of the UK. It's deepened divisions not just between political parties, but also within communities, families and regions. The referendum result may have been settled in 2016, but the country remains deeply polarized. Scotland in particular has been vocal about its desire to remain in the EU. Brexit has reignited the push for Scottish independence, with many Scots feeling that their voices were ignored during the Brexit process. Northern Ireland has also faced challenges, particularly with the border issue and the implications of the Northern Ireland Protocol. In many ways, Brexit has destabilized the UK itself. So, where does that leave us? Brexit hasn't paid off in the ways they were promised. The NHS didn't get the funding it was supposed to. Science and research in the UK have been weakened, even there were new developments after what I said here, but still. And the economy is struggling with trade barriers, labor shortages and reduced investment. And politically, the country remains divided. The truth is, Brexit was sold on a set of promises that simply haven't delivered, and outright lies. While some may argue that they were still in a transition period, which they are, the evidence so far suggests that leaving the US made life harder for the UK, not easier. And whether or not you supported Brexit in 2016, it's time to take an honest look at the reality where they are today. And especially the Brits need to ask themselves whether this is really what they wanted. So, thank you for watching, and if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more discussions on the biggest political and economic issues facing the UK today. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Brexit has paid off, or has it failed to deliver on its promises? And if you really want to see another video, the next one is right here in the end screen.